G'day, I'm Peter Anthony. Welcome to Growth Tales. I'm sure happiness is towards the top of your list of things you'd like to achieve, either daily, weekly, or at least in your lifetime. And today's guest spent 4 years interviewing thousands of people on are they happy, and if they are, what made them happy. Really fascinating stuff. This is also core in my coaching too, because I find when I'm coaching people, one of the core things they're after primarily is I'd like to be happier at work, happier in my relationships, and happier in my world. And if that's you, reach out to me for coaching at peter@peteranthonyconsulting.com. But Vanessa Vivacious is an expert in happiness. She did spend 4 years interviewing thousands of people as part of a global happiness project. She's now working on a humanity project, so we look forward to seeing that. All of the details for her will be in the show notes. But without further ado, let's learn more about happiness with Vanessa. G'day, Vanessa. Welcome to Growth Tales. You've interviewed thousands of people on happiness.
Yes.
And what did you find out? Was it a consistent thread or a consistent theme there?
You know, when I started the journey, I did not know what to find. And then as I went through the journey for 4 years, I found that the answer is never what you think it is from who it's going to come from. You could walk upon a stranger and think that you're going to receive a short answer, no answer, a long answer, and be completely thrown off by their response. So you just never know what you're going to get. But the recurrent answer was that it was subjective to the human experience.
Okay.
So for everyone, their life experience is totally different. Their definition of happiness would be different because they've lived a different life and experienced different things. So it makes perfect sense that it's completely subjective. So your version of happiness and mine are totally different. But the fact is that there are something, someone, or a culmination of things that make you happy. And that's all the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were the people, so these were all strangers you're asking, right? You didn't know them. Like basically randomly walking up to people on the street and saying, "Are you happy? And if you are, why?"
Yeah. And
That's
that
what I
was,
noticed because I watched some of these interviews on YouTube,
mhm.
and I thought that's really interesting because you think it's a fairly confronting question in some ways, isn't it? Like, "Are you happy?"
Yeah.
If I was really unhappy when you asked me, I might get a little bit angry. Did you get a bit of that when you were asking folks?
Sure. Oh my goodness. I remember this one woman that I approached once downtown at nighttime. I thought that she was going to give me a nice, cute answer. She had a cute
Yeah.
outfit on. She was on a date. And then I asked her, and she started to tear up. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to make her cry. But it's
Yeah.
because you see people almost like they live their entire life in like a matter of moments before they answer because they're taking stock of their lives. And so they're trying to find a good answer. And I used to tell people, you see like this little scrunch in their face, like this really, your brow scrunches because they're really trying to pinpoint whether they really are or not. And they just go through their whole life. And she said that she really wished that she would not have cared about everything so hard. So
All
she
right.
said that you waste a lot of time. You waste a lot of time worrying about things that never happen. Never.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so she said she wasn't happy because she wasted so much time. And that's when she started to tear up and she was like, I spent my whole life worrying about stuff that never freaking happened. Like she worried that she wasn't gonna get the right job. And so she wasn't happy with the job she had. She was worried that she wasn't gonna find the right man. And so the time before she met him, she wasn't very happy, or maybe she was happy for a small amount of time. But the funny thing is that she was so right. She was so right that we worry so much about everything. And in that we miss all the good stuff. And we
Yeah.
spend a
Yeah.
lot of time worrying about stuff that never happens. And I hugged her. I had to hug her because she was so, and she was so right, but I just connected with her and I knew exactly what she meant and I had to hug her. But yeah, so I made her cry. And then her date comes back and she just flipped a switch and she was happy again. So I don't know
Yeah.
what that was, but it was a moment.
Yeah.
There are so many moments. And I have to say, because I did not create the Are You Happy docuseries, that was created by Athe Trubka, who runs a company called Happy Productions. And his whole journey started with him and a camera deciding to find the happiest person in the world. And
Yeah.
so his brother and then a few friends, they traveled the world. They went to India, they went to Europe. I'm sure they probably went to Australia,
Yeah.
and they just walked and stayed with various people and asked strangers, "Are you happy?" And then they decided to open it up to the rest of the world and get other interviewers to do it. So they put it on social platforms, and at the end of the video it would say, join, join our team of interviewers. It still does to this very day. And so I found it one night, and I was up in the middle of the night scrolling, as you do. And I saw the end of this video, this really profound interview, and it said, join us. And I said, why the hell not? So I thought, it'll either be a really good story at a cocktail party one day,
Yeah.
or it'll be something that's completely life changing. And it totally was life changing. So I joined them, and then I was so excited that I started helping other people to film their things or helping them get answers to questions that they needed troubleshooting wise. And then one day I got tapped by him, and I thought I was in trouble because that's what I do. So I have this meeting with him, and I'm like, I'm so sorry for helping people. I didn't know. And he goes, no, 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 you're not in trouble. I'm not trying to get mad at you. I'm trying to hire you because who the hell are you? You just came in here. So I joined the team as the staff. I then became the second to him overseeing the entire project. So it was about 30 something thousand interviewers around the world. And then at the time that I joined, I think they had maybe like 2 million followers on TikTok. So when I left, it was at about almost 5 million. And Instagram blew up in the last 2 years, maybe. But I traveled the country interviewing strangers about happiness. And then for their other clients, because they work with commercial brands as well, and traveled America working with car companies, working with life insurance companies, just all kinds of nonprofits. So what they do is that they put a very positive spin on social content for brands and nonprofits, but ultimately it all came back to, are you happy? And interviewing strangers about the most simple yet complex question. And what they found, which was, I would say, like 90% of it is not force edited. They will just take the entire raw footage and they'll just cut together to shorten it the time to 1 minute, but nothing else is force edited. It's all just raw footage. And it was the best experience. I want to say that the first interview I'd ever done was at Christmas time. Funny enough, it's Christmas time. And I went to the mall and I lost my car too in the parking lot. But I interviewed a balloon artist, and he said that he was so happy because he got to make kids happy, making animals. And then I asked him, what his message would be for the world. And he gave like a very delightful, positive message saying, just do what you love and who cares about the rest. And just really, really positive and, convicted. You can tell when someone is really tapped into their truth. And it was beautiful. And he gave me two animals, which I had for a long time. So now I have to get anything that's a balloon dog. I have to have it. But after that interview went live on TikTok, it's still there. There was a comment on a video where someone said, I wasn't planning to be here tomorrow. And then I saw this video and I think I'm going to stay. And that just, like, oh my God, took my breath. And it meant that this was more than just a video series on TikTok or on Instagram, and it really impacted people. So in addition to finding out that people were happy or were not happy and why, and understanding that we could also share the unhappiness so other people could connect with them and heal from that, it was multifaceted, and it was an experience not just for us interviewing strangers, but also for the people and what they took from that and what they walked away with from the experience, whether they were being interviewed or watching it. So it was a crazy 4 years, and I still am in contact with them. I hosted the podcast for a couple of years, so that's on there as
Wow.
well. That's
Wow.
around.
So
So it was busy.
there were a few thousand Vanessas around the world.
Oh yeah, 30 some odd thousand. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there was 30,000 people wandering around
Mm-hmm.
with a camera
Mm.
asking people if they're happy. All
With
right.
their phones. With their phones. Yeah.
Yeah, with their phones. So if let's say 30,000 interviewers, there must be like hundreds of thousands of interviews, like
Oh yeah.
yeah, easily.
Easily. Yeah. And some of which maybe didn't air because the quality wasn't, good. You couldn't hear it, or
Yeah,
sometimes, you'd press record and you'd forget to turn on your audio equipment. So it'd just be like,
I know that feeling.
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that
But
feeling.
walking up to strangers, I mean, I've always done that my whole life. So it was second nature.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I like talking to strangers, and when I was young, I did it a lot. And
Mm.
then when I got a bit older, I realized that some people felt confronted when if you just spoke to them out of the blue. Like I used to fly a lot. I travel a lot, and I'd be coaching in different countries, running workshops in
Mm.
different countries. So I spent a lot of time in airport lounges. And whenever I was sitting next to a stranger, or I saw a stranger like within speaking distance, I'd say like the Australian thing, "G'day, how you going?"
Yeah.
And most people would say, "Oh, good." And you get an indication about whether they wanted to talk or not. And if they did, you'd have a chat. If not, they didn't. And you could meet. It was interesting how much people were willing to expose or
Mm.
reveal about themselves to a complete stranger. I remember one lady I spoke to on a flight from Sydney to, I think it was to KL, Kuala Lumpur,
Mm.
and she basically told me her whole life story and didn't stop talking from left to when we landed again. I'm thinking some people might just like to tell someone like how happy they are. Did you
Yeah.
come across people that were unhappy?
The sad ones, funny enough, had the most views and the most commentary. Oh my God, the saddest
Wow.
interview you'll ever find on there is about this homeless guy that gets interviewed, and he talks about all this physical abuse that he went through and his family and how terrible they were and how he had to get out of there and he was homeless. And he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but to the effect of like, I hope, one day someone loves me and I have a home. And I know he had hope though, no matter how crushing his life currently was in that moment, he still had the utmost hope that it'll get better. And that just broke the internet. It broke the internet. Anytime they post it, because they'll repost things, it breaks the internet. There were thousands of people trying to find him, and everyone's looking for him to try to help him out. And then eventually, somehow, we find him, and he says thanks, but no thanks.
He
Doesn't
didn't
want
want
the
the
help.
help. He didn't want the help.
No, he didn't. He was like, I have what I need, and I'm gonna have a good job soon. And he just turned everything down. They wanted to give him a home, a job, money, of course, and he just said, no, I got it. I'll be all right. Which is like very, very opposite of what you thought, would happen. But he
Yeah.
just didn't want help. But he saw all the messages and appreciated them. But yeah, a lot of people thought that was forced, or there was a controversy of, you know, you should have left him alone. But then they asked him if he wanted to be interviewed, and he said okay, so he agreed to it. But then they kept rolling, and from how we taught people how to interview, we taught them to never force, an interview, never force a question, never lead someone on, because you're seeking an honest opinion and answer. So you would never try to push a certain direction. That would be just wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we would train them to be quiet, because people inherently want to talk over each other. Whether you mean to or not, you just want to fill that void of silence. You just want to. And so we trained folks to just stay quiet even after they finished their answer. And they would get uncomfortable, so they would just keep talking, and they just keep going on and on. But it was never forced. Nothing was ever staged.
It's interesting you mentioned that was the most watched or had the most
Mm.
clicks because I
Mm.
know my colleagues that work in news, they tell me that the bad news stories get more views than the good news stories do, which is why there's
Mm.
hardly any good news stories on
Yeah.
cable TV or commercial
I
television.
mean, part of it is sensationalism, but another part of it, the good part of it, is that people connect and they identify with things like that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
has some level of sadness at some point, whether it's really tragic trauma or something surface level. And even in the mental health space, same thing, same
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
I've known people that have been in certain facilities where they commented that they didn't get help from the doctors. They got help from the other patients because they could share their stories and connect. And that was the biggest help of all, to know that you're not alone and that you can get better. Or maybe this guy has it worse than you do, so you're going to be okay. Just being able
yeah.
to connect, it means everything. And so I think that's
It's
why.
interesting. Yeah, it is really interesting because and I noticed that with friendships too. But I'm a member of a big ocean swim group in Australia, and we often get new people coming along. And so there's old schoolers like me that have been in the group for like 12, 13 years, and we know each other very well. But you notice as friendships develop, it's when you're sharing bad news or
Mm.
sad news with someone that then you realize, hey, and they're being honest with you about how hard
Hmm.
their lives are. That's when you realize the friendship has reached like a deeper level, like when they share
Hmm.
that with you,
Hmm.
rather than all being happy, happy, joy, joy, and yeah, I'm happy and life's
Right.
wonderful and I've got no problems. And yeah,
Right. It's almost as though we have to connect with each other before we can celebrate each other. And the way to connect is to, share those meaningful, important stories.
yeah, Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And often, and this is something I had to learn too, particularly as a male. If when I heard bad news, I wanted to fix it.
Mm.
Like if somebody was unhappy, I wanted to fix them and make them happy, right? But quite often, if they're unhappy or they were sad about something, all they really wanted me to do is to care that they're unhappy, not do
Or
anything about it.
listen. Yeah.
Just
People just
listen and
want to,
care and be there
yes.
with them, and just by itself, it's curative rather than having to like flick the happy switch. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's listening and then there's listening. The first one you're just listening, but the second one you're actively listening, and you're able to reflect on their words and say,
Yes.
you mentioned this, blah 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 blah. Like that
Yeah.
means everything because
It
that
does.
means you're really listening, but it also gives them the opportunity to open up further and share
Yeah.
something further. Sometimes people would share things that even they didn't think they were going to say. I can't tell you how many times I heard people say, "Oh my God, I had no idea I was going to say that." And part of it was me. Part of it was me,
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
kind of asking follow up questions that are really meaningful because I understand the importance of a follow up question. But it's so important. I took that job so seriously because of the fact that you're interacting with other human beings and you're helping them convey some sort of message or some sort of experience, but you want to do it justice. And so you don't just ask them, "Oh, well, what's your favorite color?" You
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
ask them
Yeah.
more like, what is it that blue makes you feel? What does it make you think about?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
things like that. So
It's
yes.
interesting you talk about listening, Vanessa, because when I did my coaching degree, one of the things our lecturer told us when you're coaching with someone, you should listen until you disappear.
Mm,
And initially, I didn't really understand what she meant, but what she meant was that listen, like give them, like transfer all of your attention onto them, and listen until you and your stuff and your opinions
mm,
disappear. So you're just fully there for them. And then what she told us then, which is true, is that, and then you'll hear more
mm-hmm,
when you
mm-hmm,
disappear, because if all your stuff's in the way when you're
mm,
talking to somebody, like all your attitudes and opinions and biases and prejudices are in the way, you don't actually hear what they're saying. All you want to do is
right.
wait for them to stop talking so you can make your great point.
Right.
Right. I
Actively
like that. I thought
listening. It's important. It's hard, but it's important. When you get the hang of it,
it's
you're
yeah.
there.
I find that when you're tired, it's easy. You can just listen until you disappear because you're too tired to respond.
Right. Or you told all the stories. You're done.
You told all the
Yeah.
stories and you don't. I remember I remember one of my great books I enjoyed growing up was a book called Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. I read it when I was about
Yeah. I
15. I
know that.
loved it. I loved that book. It was like it changed my life and changed the way I thought about things.
Mm,
And I remember he later in life he said he and his wife went on a cruise together. Went on like a 10-day cruise of I think it was the Greek islands. And he said for the whole 10 days they didn't talk to each other. And he
hmm.
said because they had nothing left to say. They'd been together their entire lives, been together like,
Yeah.
60, 70 years. And he said there was nothing left to say. We just enjoyed the islands. And then we came home. I thought, what?
Mm.
I'd find that hard. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, because at first, okay, I know I've seen something to that extent, something about that idea of being so comfortable with someone that there's no reason to talk. And at first you think, oh, that's so sad because there's literally nothing to say. But then when you think about it further, it's because, they're so intertwined and they know each other so well that it's nothing but, feeling and senses. And there's no words that are necessary because you are able to convey things back and forth without any of that. And that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, you can. You're just with that person. You're just walking with that person, or just with them. And if you said something, it would almost spoil the moment.
Books like that are good and they're necessary, and
Yeah,
it's good
yeah,
that there are still authors out there that really challenge things and question
yeah,
ideas. So thank God for books.
yeah. Thank God for books. Let's take a short break from our conversation with Vanessa to talk about my coaching at peteranthonyconsulting.com. If you're keen to have coaching on happiness and its causes for you with a strong positive psychology bent, which is what I use, I help you understand your particular unique personality, help you understand your purpose and the path that you can get there. And when I say get there to being a more happy, more fulfilled individual. If that's something that you'd like to find out more about, reach out to me, Peter at peteranthonyconsulting.com. Meantime, let's get back to our conversation with Vanessa. It's interesting too when you talk about that guy that was really unhappy, but he said he had hope.
Mm,
It reminds me of one of the guys I love listening to. It was Les Brown. You would have come
Oh,
across
I
Les.
love him. Oh
Yeah,
my God, I'm a huge
I
fan.
love Les Brown. I came across Les Brown probably 20 years ago,
Mm,
because I was going to a lot of like self-help stuff, a lot of like Tony
sure,
Robbins and that sort of stuff. And I
sure.
stumbled across Les Brown, and he was in this huge stadium, one of these speakers in this huge stadium, must have been like 100,000 people in this place, somewhere in the US. And his whole story was about him growing up. And his theme was, it's possible.
Yes,
It's
yes.
possible, right? It's possible. Like, no matter how bad it is. And he said, no matter how bad it is and how bad it gets, just keep reminding yourself it's possible, right?
Mm,
And you think, if you are feeling down and you're not happy, if you can just think, well, it's possible I can be happy again. It is possible.
yeah.
And that's all often you need to dig back out of the hole.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I remember him saying, I remember like hearing him on Apple, like 'cause I downloaded his stuff, but then also watching him on YouTube. I don't even know how exactly I found him, and this was like 2020, I think. And he had said, make a list of what you want, and I think writing "It's Possible" was one of those things at the bottom. So I had that list hanging up somewhere. I'm sure it's still around. But then he used to tell himself, "Shut up." He would say like that anytime something negative came, he would just tell it to shut up. And it reminded me that I do the same thing sometimes, because when I think negatively, or when something comes up that I'm like, oh, I can't do that, I'll just say, oh, well, that's dumb. That's what I say for everything that's negative. Oh, that's dumb. I don't think that I'm going to be good enough for these. That's dumb. Like, I really shouldn't do that or say that, because then I'll look too smart or too much of an. Oh, that's dumb. Why would you
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
dumb.
That's dumb.
Yeah,
So anything negative, I just say that's dumb. Anything I
that's
think,
dumb.
anything
Yeah,
I do,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's dumb. Yeah.
And if you think of those dreams, think of those goals, we think of like what you've got in mind. You think, well, if it's possible,
Mm,
that might give you enough hope to take the next steps towards it. And
yeah.
I think if you're on the journey, that's going to make you happier if you're moving towards that.
Yeah, and listening to
Yeah,
people like him, people that don't have an agenda, you know. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
Tony Robbins is one of the oldest, right, in that field. And some of the stuff that he has is okay, but some stuff he has is kind of questionable, and it just
yeah,
varies.
yeah.
There are a lot
It,
of great people out there.
that there are, and I think Robbins was the first one to make it like a huge, like, I mean, he's come to Australia, he's run events here. I've gone
Mhm.
to the fire walking experience twice. Once with some friends, and once a bit later when a good mate of mine was in trouble, and I took him to that. I did
Yeah.
the date with Destiny with him, where you spend a week with him and a bunch of people.
Wow.
And I mean, a lot of it is great, but there are some parts that can be quite, uh, I
Yeah.
guess, challenging. Like
Yeah.
one of his favourite ideas is never leave the scene of a decision without taking massive action.
Mm.
And I think, well, maybe massive action's a bit too hard. Like if I'm not feeling great about my life, and I'm really struggling,
Mhm.
I think the opposite. I think a tiny step might be what you need, like a tiny step in the direction that you want to go in,
Mhm.
and that might be more comforting and more enriching and more empowering than thinking I've got to take massive action, because maybe I'm not strong enough to take massive action. Maybe I'm feeling quite vulnerable and weak, and I
Yeah.
haven't got all my resources. So maybe just saying it's possible and just taking a tiny step might be, and I keep taking tiny steps, might work a bit better. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think both work. Both work. Sometimes big ones are necessary because it takes you out of the normal day to day. And
yeah,
then sometimes smaller ones are necessary because if you're really hurting, something really big can be really bad very quickly.
that's
Whereas,
right.
something small and measurable can be fine,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a gradual path. That's fine too.
Yeah, particularly if you're not feeling particularly strong, like you've got a really big
Mm,
challenge in your life, like relationship challenge, financial challenge,
yeah.
work challenge. You think sometimes you don't feel strong enough to take massive action, and then you feel worse because well, I can't take the massive action either, so I'm even worse off. I think,
Mm,
well, let's just take some tiny steps. But one of the things I was really interested to ask you about, Vanessa, is I like to, in the coaching chair, I study a lot of positive psychology, and there's a lot of happiness research in positive psychology, and one of
mhm,
the strongest markers of what's called self-reported happiness, which is people saying that they're happy, because you
mhm.
don't actually know if they're happy or not, but say this person says they're happy, why are you happy? One of the highest markers is social connection and relationships of people that are happy. So if I'm happy because I've got either great interpersonal relationships, great friendships. Did you
Mhm.
find that when when you're interviewing people that relationships or other people made people happy? But that come up as a reason
Do you mean like did relationships in my life make me happy at the
in
same
your
time
life
or
or in the
in their
people that you
lives?
interviewed? Yeah, in their lives.
Well, yeah. I mean, you had a lot of answers where they would talk about what makes them happy is their families and their significant
Yeah, yeah,
others. And so
yeah,
yeah, there definitely was a comparable amount of people that would respond to saying relationships or family members that make them super happy. For myself, I, funny enough, like totally opposite. I mean, I was traveling a lot, but I was happy that I was traveling a lot because I didn't want to be at home. My spouse and I were just in two different areas of our lives, and so I was happiest being away from home than I was
yeah,
being at
yeah.
home. But then coming back from all of that, it gave a lot of perspective on what I needed and what I wanted and what I deserved, and just experiencing so many different human experiences through other people and hearing these stories, it only made me stronger in understanding that there are things that are more complex than we know. We can be married or not married, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it to what you need and what you don't need and what you want and what you're willing to put up with. So I learned a lot outside of the home, and when I came back home we had a conversation about what that looks like in the future, and how we can best coexist. And so for us, it made sense that after I think we'd been together about 15 years and we'd been married 11 years, and we decided that we would be best to live in separate areas. And so he is moving to Colorado, and
Yeah.
he's a big Buddhist person, and
Oh,
so
right.
he wants to live, near the what are they called? The places, the temples, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So he
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
live closer to the temples and live on this open land, and I'm happy for him. I'm so happy for him that he gets to be in the perfect place for him, and I myself get to stay here and turn my house into a production studio and go out and film things and work with my orchestra, work my day job, and just do nothing but create and just have a really good living experience.
So do you think when you're out there asking all these thousands of people, are you happy?
Mm.
Maybe you're asking yourself that question, are you happy?
100%. You
You're
you
asking,
you
so it was like
constantly
you were asking yourself, are you happy, or how to be happy? And you came back with the answer.
maybe. But again, I will say it like day in day out. If anyone asks me like what was the answer, and I'll say all the time, it is completely subjective to your experience
Yeah, yeah,
first and
yeah,
foremost,
exactly.
because
Yeah,
because no one answer was exactly the same, and no one had the same response. It was completely subjective to them.
yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of funny because you really are hoping that there's one answer, but there isn't. Everyone is so complex, there is not one answer. But the
That's
beautiful part is that there is not one answer, that there's not a prescription, there's not a formula, there is not. It's so complex and so designed to your specification. I mean, look at medicines. There are now medicines that are like made for you specifically. They can, um,
yeah. There's a lot of herbal practitioners
mm,
that will
yeah,
mix a dose just for you. It'll
right,
taste horrific, but
right,
it'll be just
right,
for you. You
down the
think this must
hatch,
be healthy for me because it tastes so bad.
right. So all of the happiness journey, I never thought that it would end, but it did. After 4 years of it, I guess like both the company and I both had moments where I needed to take step away. I took 5 months off, and then they continued forward. And then I decided to take all of the unused footage that I had, because I have thousands of hours of footage, and I decided to cut it down into a new project. So my thing is that, humanity is in a difficult place. And to remind humanity that we are human and that there are a lot of positive moments in humanity just as much as the negative ones, that could be healing and encouraging and remind us of our own humanity and to preserve and, if not, promote it. So there were a billion human moments in the footage. So my new project, which is Humanity 2.0, is taking that footage and cutting down to those really human moments to share that on the platforms. So there's a video series, and then there's a podcast interviewing other humans about their humanity and what they
Right.
see in the future. So
Is it the same people you interviewed on happiness, but it's more they're talking more about humanity? Is that how it works?
Yes. So the
Yeah,
video
yeah.
series will be footage from those interviews because there is like, when you talk to someone, it spins off into a tangent. And so they cut out what's not about happiness, right? So I have
Okay.
like tons of footage that never saw the light of day because it was on things that are not about happiness, but they are so beautiful and raw. And they're things that people should see because it reminds you that there are good humans out there or that there are other humans that you can connect with and understand, understand yourself by proxy. So that video series I'm working on, hopefully I'll be done before the new year. And then the podcast, I just started interviewing for it. And so with that, I'm interviewing everyone and anyone. So I'm reaching out to people that I've interviewed for happiness in the past and then also people that I come across. And so that will be an interview that's both video and audio on Riverside.
Plug for Riverside.
Yeah, but it's Humanity 2.0
Okay.
podcast and Humanity 2.0. So it'll be
Okay.
on, it's all under my name, all under at Vanessa the Vivacious, because I have my own production company,
Okay.
which is Vanessa the Vivacious Productions. And then it'll all just kind of be housed under that company. So that way
Okay.
one-stop shop.
I'm going to put all those links in the show notes for people that
Yeah.
want to reach out. I think that'd be really interesting
Oh,
to
I'm so excited.
to watch. Yeah, yeah, to watch real people. It's interesting. I just circle back a moment. You mentioned that one of the key things you learned was that happiness was very unique. It was very
Subjective.
individual to each person. It's interesting that was a big learning curve I had when I was coaching people because I spend probably half of my week sitting on Zoom or on Teams coaching people
Mm-hmm.
in different parts of the world. And I came from a training and workshop background, so I was always in workshops teaching people things in
Yeah.
workshops. And I thought coaching was teaching. I thought it was like teaching something to somebody. What I realized after doing coaching psychology was that it's not so much I'm going to teach you something or give you something. It's going to be I'm going to help you find what you've already got, right?
Mm.
And use coaching tools to ask questions and use like psychometrics and personality assessments and pieces like that to help you understand who you really are. Because
Yeah.
often the people I find that are most off track that I'm working with, whether it's off track emotionally or physically or commercially or professionally, it's because they're not tapping into who they really are. They're tapping into
Mm.
somebody else. Like they're running someone else's life or someone else's
Mm-hmm.
agenda or someone
Mm-hmm.
else's goals. And they reach a stage where they think, hold it, that's actually not my goals. That's actually not what I want. That's what somebody else
Yeah.
wants, which is great for them, right? It's great for them. Like if I'm in a company and I'm the boss is happy with me because I'm helping her achieve all her goals, great for her, but
Yeah.
maybe not great for me, or maybe there's things and often it's been so long since we've done what makes us really happy, we forget what it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
You
And it
forget what
feels like
happiness is.
there's almost like a renaissance going on right now. If you just look around, you find,
Happiness renaissance.
well, more even like what makes you happy, like a creativity kind of boom,
Yeah, yeah,
You see
yeah,
so much more content creators that have never created anything in their lives, just
yeah.
making music, making art, doing all kinds of I went to a show last night of a young group of boys who started a Mexican alternative indie band and they played in downtown Dallas and it was really good. But they just decided they wanted to play music and they'd never played music in their lives, but they just picked it up.
Yeah,
So
and it worked.
yeah, so your coaching sounds really awesome because it feels almost like you're one of the dinosaur people excavating bones, and versus just helping people fit the mold because that's awful. Fitting the mold is not
It's
good.
exactly it's the opposite of what Robbins would do. Like with the
Mm,
Robbins event, you'd go to the event, you'd say, "Okay, you're unhappy, or you want help, whatever. Here's step one, step two, step three, step four. Like here's all these things to do, right?" And the
mm,
whole room, full of 1,000 people, all doing exactly the same thing, right? And all walking on fire and chanting and
yeah,
taking massive action and everything else. And that feels good. And when you're in the room, it feels great, right? You get really pumped up and you feel great. Don't get me
sure.
wrong; it has positive impacts. But if you would like to be happier than where you are. And you're feeling, you get a sense that, you know what, I'm less happy than I think I deserve to be. I'd like to explore that.
Mm,
I can't tell Vanessa how to be happy, right? I
hmm.
can't say, because I don't know you, right? And even if I knew you, I couldn't tell you how to be happy because
Right.
only you know what lights you up, like what makes you feel great, like who
Hmm.
makes you feel great, what makes you feel great. Only you know that. My job would be to help you find what that is and also help you understand it's okay to go for it. It's
Mm,
actually more than okay. It's your role in this world to deliver your unique piece to the whole global puzzle. right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes you happy. That's what makes the world a better place, because no one can deliver it like you can. So let's find out what it is, and let's help you like celebrate it, and enjoy it, and help the world enjoy your happiness too in whatever you choose to do.
Yeah.
That works better than say, hey, let's take massive action and fill in the workbook, and here's the 3 steps and the 5 causes, and it's all these
Right.
things.
Yeah. Very formulaic.
It's very formulaic, and it's interesting. There's a bunch of us that do this sort of work, and it came off the back of Carl Jung, who obviously we all know.
Yep.
And what he suggested to us way back then was, he said, and I love the way he said this. He said, there's an inner hero in you, like an inner hero in Vanessa, that's beckoning you on a call to adventure. They said inner Vanessa, right? That's beckoning you. That's say, hey, let's go on an adventure. Like inner version of you, right? And only you can hear that call, and only you know what that is. And only you feel that, right? And when you tap into that, that's when that's what I find. That's when you're happiest. I'm happiest, and that's when the world gets the benefit of your unique contribution, right?
Right. And I think that
it's really cool.
We don't focus on the in between. So when you find that point and you listen to that call and you're doing it, you're off doing it, there's also a point where you get tired and you stop doing it. And it's okay to stop doing it and understand that you didn't fail. You're just a little tired. You need to catch your wind. You're not 22 anymore. You're 40
Yeah,
or
that's
50.
right. Yeah, that's right.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
and it can get exhausting, because when you get caught up in it, you get consumed by it, and you don't want to sleep and do anything else. You're just like, right, but that's a great way to be there, right?
Sure. Oh my God. I edited videos all night long into the next day. I would not sleep until the next day all the time.
Yeah.
I do that every now and then, but now I kind of sleep early enough and then just wake up at 2 a.m. to do it. So I kind of plan it out a little bit better.
And it can. Let's take a short break from our conversation with Vanessa to talk about my coaching at peteranthonyconsulting.com. If you're keen to have coaching on happiness and its causes for you, with a strong positive psychology bent, which is what I use, I help you understand your particular unique personality, help you understand your purpose, and the path that you can get there. And when I say get there to being a more happy, more fulfilled individual. If that's something that you'd like to find out more about, reach out to me, Peter at peteranthonyconsulting.com. Meantime, let's get back to our conversation with Vanessa. Change. I mean, I spoke to an expert a couple of weeks ago on how to build your ideal day. And he one of the things he was saying was that ideal days are different for all of us, which is obviously true, but also it can vary. Like your ideal day in summer could be different than your ideal day in winter. Like we both talked earlier before we got on air about buying Christmas decorations, right?
Right.
Ideal day might be people going to do that all year, right?
Yesterday, I thought I was going to buy reindeer, but oh no, I bought a projector instead. Do you remember Christmas Vacation? Did you guys watch that? The National Lampoon's Christmas with Clark Griswold?
Yes.
I am Clarkette Griswold. I'm all about the lights.
Well, in my family, every year we watch Love Actually. I don't know if you know that. It's a Hugh Grant movie, and it's a whole series of different romances and relationships.
Yes.
At Christmas time, and it's I love that movie. I really.
He has a lot of great movies.
Yeah, that's I really enjoy that one, particularly when there's one of the characters. His best friend marries the girl that he's in love with, and he's got to make the video of the wedding, and he's editing the video, like you were just talking about editing. He's editing the video, looking at her and feeling he just loves her so much. It's just so hard to edit. Yeah. And he goes to the house, knocks on the door, and he just holds up these cards about how he feels. And the last one is, you to me are everything. I thought, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's lovely. Everyone wants that.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I mean, to have some sort of that. I mean, it feels like sometimes we think that we don't deserve that, or, we settle for less, and that's not cool. So and
it gets that really tricky relationship thing where you think, well, would I rather be with them and not be completely happy, or take the risk and be alone and maybe not find anybody else, or not be as happy? They're tricky decisions, right?
Sure, definitely.
They're really tricky decisions. So your husband went off to be a Buddhist.
Yeah. So he's been a Buddhist since like the 90s.
Okay.
And Yeah, but when we were or he was deciding, I say we, when he was deciding where he was going to move, I said, do go where you want to go where you really want to go, because yeah, you can go home and live with your family, or you can go somewhere where you really want to go, and live the life you really want, because time is of the essence now. It always has been, but now more so, because who knows what's going to happen next year or 10 years from now. So why not move to that perfect place that you want to live? So
Yeah.
that's what he's doing.
And it was awesome that you both managed to do that amicably without a
Well,
huge.
yeah. I mean, because we were best friends first, so you'll always have that nurturing best friendship.
Yeah.
And thank God we're both not like toxic, angry people. So there wasn't like a he said she said thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
It
very
wouldn't work for your
amicable.
brand either, Vanessa. Like if you had these toxic breakups with people and talking about happiness and
Right?
humanity, it wouldn't.
Right? Yeah. Well, when you're younger, you do things. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect, but when you're
I
younger,
know,
you
no,
do some things.
none of us are, but it would be
Yeah.
sort of counter brand, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. I remember in my taking a boyfriend to the bus station because he wasn't very helpful. He lived in my apartment for about 2 years doing nothing. And eventually I got up the courage to say, yeah, you've got to go now. So I bought him a bus ticket and sent him home. And he was like, I don't have any money to call home. And I gave him a pocket full of change and said, here you go. See you later. So that was not very nice, probably. But yeah, no, my current husband has this thing about me. And he says, I don't understand how you're so positive and how you could have led the life you led, because a lot of very bad things happened in the past when I was growing up versus, being a young adult and coming from very adverse situations. And I tell him that music performance had a huge role in my life for that, and it helped heal and also helped me develop confidence. But also helping other people, service to others has always been huge since I was a child, and so anything that happened to me, it made no difference, because helping other people and serving others and just being good and positive and helping people, that was everything to me. It still is. So yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's that life of service, isn't it? It's yeah.
Oh no, you're
And
frozen.
did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze for a second. It was so
I
good you
froze for
froze.
yeah. It's that idea of service which I really love. If I just circle back to that coaching piece for a moment, I believe I work for the universe. Like I
Mm,
believe that, and when I work for the universe works for me. So like
mm-hmm.
when I'm in that coaching chair, I put a lot of energy and effort and care into ensuring the people that I'm talking to get the best possible outcome they can, and work out
Yeah.
what their particular inner hero is. And I find that when I do that, and I'm very intent on doing it, and they do get a breakthrough, I
Mm-hmm.
find in my life a breakthrough happens too. It's like, so
Yeah.
I think when I work for the universe, when I'm kind and caring and considerate and full of humanity, then the universe works back for me. It's a weird way that works.
It's like a
Yeah.
soul food. You're feeding yourself, but you're also giving out universe snacks.
Yeah.
Giving out universe snacks and receiving your own snacks. But yes, I'm hungry.
Having a universe snack.
Universe snacks and
Yeah,
soul food.
a
But
little
I
snack, a little
I totally
snack
a little
of
nosh, a little nosh. I totally get that. I totally understand that. Helping them feeds your soul.
humanity or of happiness or of love
Humanity
or of
snack.
humanity stack. That'd be a good name for your I probably
There
named it
you
already, have
go.
you?
For what now?
For your humanity series, you could call it humanities snack.
Oh, well, I can make little tiny baby 15-second humanity snacks. That's right.
Yeah, little
Wow. That's
snacks. Here's a
wonderful.
little snack of humanity.
Here's a snack.
Here's this. I like that because you don't think
You look
humanity and
hungry,
snack in the same sentence, do you? It's like a nice
right?
juxtaposition.
That's different. Yeah, I like that. Once I was in Utah, and I met this man who worked for the BBC, and he was a cameraman, and I was talking to him about this documentary I was working on and how I was stuck, and he was like, "Oh, that's simple. You just do da 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 da," and I'm like, "Wow." Just reading random people and them working for the BBC telling you how to fix your film. That was the coolest thing ever.
It's weird how you randomly bump into these people, isn't it?
Oh
I
yeah.
remember being on a flight a few years ago and had a woman sitting alongside me, and she was reading a book about exhuming dead bodies, right?
Mm,
Like getting, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I said, I'm
feel
just
good
curious,
reading.
you know, what's the book? And she said, yeah, what she was doing, she said she was traveling to Sarajevo in Europe.
Oh.
She was a forensic archaeologist. She was going to part of a team digging up bones,
Mm-hmm.
identifying cause of death, and putting a case together to the Hague, like
Yeah.
Commission on Crimes in War.
Wow.
And her name was Mia, and she wrote a book called The Bone Woman. And I found
Okay.
her really, really, really interesting. We had a conversation. It was more like me listening to her story, because my story wasn't
Yeah.
anywhere near as interesting as hers, about how she was traveling around the world as a forensic archaeologist, and she always wanted to be a forensic archaeologist because she wanted to dig up people and right the wrongs of their death.
Mm.
And she got called. I thought, wow, what a bizarre calling. Imagine being a little girl and saying to your mum, "Oh, mum, I think I might dig up dead
I don't
bodies."
work
And
with dead people. My son said that to me, and I said, okay.
but it worked. It worked out well. It worked out well for her. If me, if you're out there listening, I was the guy in the aircraft that was so fascinated by your story all those years ago. That was me.
That's crazy. Wow. The people you meet in the airport, in the plane. I love that you said that you talk to people in the airport. I do the same thing. I've
Yeah,
always done
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Always.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
actually like. Yeah, I talk to them, but what I'm really curious about, I'm really curious about their lives. I don't want to sort of
Mm-hmm.
tell them about me. I'm curious about them.
Right. Yeah.
And I find just such interesting stories from people. Wow,
Yeah.
I find that really curious. People that think very differently than me. I think, wow, like I'm nowhere near a forensic archaeologist. I'll never probably
Right.
talk to one again. But I find that really interesting. That's how she's thinking.
Hope you don't. That's not a good person to talk to. But yeah, I have this weird thing and I always come back to it. But when I was really young, I didn't talk to anyone. Just, I don't know why. I was just by myself all the time. But I would go to the movies and I would go to the cafe afterward and I'd analyze the movie. So that tells me what I was going to do, right? And I would sit there and I'd watch people. Everywhere I went, I would watch people and I would just watch them interact with each other, whether it was kids or adults. I just watch them and observe. And it taught me so much more about people than I could ever learn from reading a book. But then, talking to people as an interviewer, you grow more and you start interacting and hearing all of these stories. But it all goes back to when I was little, that's what I just did inherently, was just watch and observe because I wanted to learn more about the human condition. And that was how I spent my free time.
Yes, yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons why podcasts have boomed so much over the past few years,
Oh yeah.
because we're missing conversation. We're missing that sort of human connection and conversation, and a real, like, real
Yeah.
non-contrived conversation. And it's great. It's great being part of them and great listening to
Yeah.
them when they're done well.
For
Yeah.
sure. For me, I started doing it in 2012, so way long time
Wow.
ago. Back
Wow.
when it was all about NPR and This American Life, I was obsessed
Oh,
with This
National
American
Public
Life.
Radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
NPR. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. I know NPR.
And Ira Glass, he's a hero. And so I remember, and I wonder if I have it. Hang on, because I had it. I have a microphone. It's a very teeny tiny one. Looks like a Q-tip. Let me see if I have it. No, I don't. But I need I need to frame it. So it's this very tiny microphone. Looks like a Q-tip with a little 3.5 cord down the bottom, right? And you plug it into your computer, and that was the microphone for the podcast. And it was this tiniest little thing, and the quality was the worst you've ever heard in your whole life. But
Ah.
I would record on I think a brand platform called Spreaker. It's still there to this day. But that was my first podcast, was talking about whatever happened that day and reading weird news. And I did it because, I had so much to say and no one to talk to. And my husband didn't want to hear it. So I was like, just going to put it out there. And I did that since 2012.
Wow. Wow. Have you got any final thoughts for listeners, Vanessa? Like, people listening, about humanity or happiness that you'd like a thought you'd like to leave with people?
It's a great question. I asked the same question on my show.
Do you?
And I, you have no idea how nice it is to be interviewed and do the interviews, but it's also nice, breath of fresh air, to do, opposite.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Not edit it for once. My final thought would be that we are more complicated and complex than we think we are. And it's so beautiful that we are. And if you could take a moment to reflect on yourself, but also other people, and think of others, and like you said earlier, listen to people, but really listen to them, then you will find that you are far more enriched with every single person that you meet than you could ever become on your own. And so I would encourage people to talk to others and listen to them, and to, find ways of interaction, whether it be at the airport or in a bookstore or at the park, but talk to each other and share these positive stories about humanity, so we can remember that there is good humanity out there, and that good things are possible for all of us. That's what I would say. And also be vivacious, because that's my thing, is vivacious.
Vanessa the
Don't
Vivacious.
forget to be vivacious. But yes, I really hope that your folks will follow me on the platforms, but also follow the show, because it's not yet released, but the Humanity 2.0 podcast is on all the platforms, so it can take followers. And then my at Vanessa the Vivacious on all the platforms, you see a ton of wackadoodle stuff. So definitely follow.
And I'll put all those links in the show notes for the guys so they can find them really easily.
Yeah, it's been the best hour, but I have to ask you. So hang
Yeah,
on,
sure.
because you're you're a workshop person or a speaker or both.
I'm a workshop person, a speaker, and a coach. I do
Okay,
all three of them. Yeah.
so I find it fascinating, and the people that do that work, I have to always ask them, why did you go into this area? What do you receive from it? Like, what is your purpose for being in that space?
Which space? The speaking space,
Mm,
the big room space.
yeah.
Well, when I was a kid, even when I was at school, I was asked to like talk to the assembly and of the other students. I've always felt absolutely the most comfortable in front of the most people, particularly if they're strangers. I love it. I feel completely centered. I feel like I'm very present, and I really love being in that space. So it's a sense of comfort, and it's also, I guess, it's also a call to duty where I feel like I would like to leave the people's lives better off before my speech or before my talk to them than they were beforehand. So when they walk
Hmm.
into the room, I could be at a conference and there could be 10 speakers at this conference. And my goal is I think very serious about who these people are, what message I can give them that leaves them better off. Because quite selfishly, I think if I do that, I'll feel great. And I also know the universe will return a favor in some bizarre way. But it's a huge blast. It's
Yeah.
standing on a room in a room that like 1,000 people or more in a room and talking to them. You feel alive, Vanessa.
Hmm.
You feel alive. I think about it now. I feel tingly. I love that sort of tingly, sort of slightly
Yeah.
excited feeling.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I do. I know it. I remember when when you're in school and when you read to the whole class and you know that everyone is listening to every word that you're saying. There's that
Yeah,
really
yeah,
odd electricity. And
yes.
also being on stage too. Same thing. Nothing like it.
And it also amps up the pressure on you to deliver value. Because
Mm,
if I'm being flown somewhere to talk at a conference, like it could be China, Japan, it could be I've spoken to the Bahamas, like all over the place, Austin, Texas, all over the place. If you're someone's flying you there
yeah.
to deliver, it puts the pressure on you to do a really, really great job to make that content or make those. Well, what I do is I tell stories. I've got
Mm,
to make those stories really powerful and really strong and really resonate with the folks that are there. And that's, as you know, that all becomes word of mouth. And if you do a great job, the conference organisers will get you to do another gig somewhere else.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the
That's
reasons
wonderful.
I got to travel so much, because I really wanted to travel when I was younger, but I was too poor to afford the flights, right?
Mm,
So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll run workshops and speak, and then people will fly me around the world, and I haven't got to pay for the.
yeah.
Right. I haven't got
Good.
I haven't got a gig. One of my best ever gigs, I got a gig in Cairo, Egypt. I thought,
Mm,
wow, this is so cool. So I'm in Cairo, Egypt, and I'm at this conference, and I extended the time afterwards. And my wife and I got a chance to see like all the Egyptian things, like the pyramids and sphinxes
yeah.
and the Nile River and all that sort of stuff. Thinking, wow, this is so cool. And this is all off the back
Amazing.
of me just working so hard
Sure.
at these conferences. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you get to not only enrich other people, but also enrich yourself as well on your off time.
You do. And they also think if you've been flown in, you must be good. It's sort of like a bit of
Yeah.
it also puts more pressure on you, right? So it's sort of like a double-edged sword, but it's a great way to travel. It's a great way to travel. And the
I
bizarre
have.
thing too is what I found is the people are the same all over the world. I could be in the Bahamas, I could be in Austin, Texas, I could be in Cairo, I could be
Mm,
in Manchester, East Kilbride in Scotland, I could be in Beijing, or I could be anywhere, and the people are exactly the same.
how do you mean they're exactly the same?
They're exactly the same. They're all looking for the same thing.
Mm,
They're looking for the same thing. That's what I find. I find we're much more alike. We're more alike than we are different in that sense. Like
mm-hmm.
if you're going to a conference and wanting a message, the people in the room are more alike everywhere in the world than they are different. They become more alike. Individually, they're very different, but as a group, they're more alike. if that makes any sense.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because I used to think,
People
who am
are
I to be
awesome.
going to getting to Shanghai and talking at this conference? I think, well, who am I not to?
Yeah.
Because we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome where we don't want to sort of talk ourselves up too much. This is Australians, right? We sort of like to sort of pull back a bit. Whereas I find Americans go the complete opposite.
Did you say tall poppy syndrome? What is
Yeah,
it?
it's called a tall poppy syndrome, which means
Like
don't
a
be a
poppy
tall poppy,
flower?
otherwise people will cut you off. The poppies will get cut off because
What is a
poppies have got
poppy?
like
Is it a
long
flower?
stems and big heads,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people will cut you off. So don't get a tall poppy. Tall poppy is like, keep yourself low, like don't talk yourself up, like don't talk a big game, be humble.
Right.
But I find I go say West Coast US, it's the complete opposite.
Oh no, we're all poppies.
Everyone's poppies.
You have to be popular. So yeah, popular.
So we had to learn that. We had to learn, like, we're much more self-deprecating and more.
Yeah.
I taught to be more humble
More
about.
shrubbery like.
Yeah. It's called a tall poppy syndrome. Like
That's
that's what we call
interesting.
it. I don't know whether that's a psychological term, where
I love
like if
it.
you're a tall poppy, you'll get cut off. Yes.
Well, now when I see poppies, I'll think of you.
You think of poppies. You think of poppies.
Who
Isn't
else
this
do I like?
bizarre? We can talk like this, and we can find so much in common because we're talking about humanity and happiness. And I strongly encourage folks to check out your work. I think it'll be very worthwhile. I have before we met today. I had a good look through the happiness pieces, and it's really well worthwhile dipping into. And I'm sure this humanity piece will be really
Yes.
worthwhile to
Yes. Thank
dip
you so
into.
much.
Absolute pleasure. Vanessa, thank you for being a guest on Growth Tales today.
Thank you.
I loved that conversation with Vanessa, and I hope you did too. I love the fact that after interviewing thousands of people over 4 years and being part of this global project, she found that happiness is subjective. It's very unique to each individual, and it's likely to be unique to you too. I also loved how she's now finished that happiness project, and she's keen to work now on humanity as a project, or Humanity 2.0. I'm looking forward to seeing that. If you'd like to reach out to Vanessa and find out more about that happiness project and the humanity project, all the links are in the show notes. If you'd like coaching on your individual happiness, how to find what it is unique for you and how to get more of it in your life, reach out to me at peteranthonyconsulting.com. In the meantime, I'll see you next time on Growth Tales.